This is Lisa from Mobile Tech Review, and today we're going to look at the Lenovo IdeaPad Z400 Touch. Okay, you get the idea. It's got a touchscreen on it, 14 inches. That's why it's a 400 series. They call it thin and light. It's not super thin. It's not super light, but not a bad looking piece. We're going to look at it now. So this is the Lenovo IdeaPad Z400 Touch. There's also a Z500. There's a couple of different models in the Z lineup of multimedia machines. This is the new one that has a touchscreen right here. 10 points of multi-touch. Pretty nice to have that, certainly with Windows 8, because, well, it's not much fun to use this UI with the trackpad. Price starts at around $599. That gets you a Core i3 with only 4 gigs of RAM. We're looking at the Core i5 model here, and this is a full Core i5. This is one of the good things about this machine. This is not a ULV low-powered CPU like you see in Ultrabooks and some lower-cost machines. This is full 2.6 gigahertz. That's its normal clock speed, not the Turbo Boost clock speed. 2.6 gigahertz. So good for those of you who need to do more processing. Maybe you're editing HD video, you're doing really complex spreadsheet computations, that kind of thing. This is for you guys right there. Also, it's a little bit better at gaming. It has only Intel HD 4000 integrated graphics, no dedicated graphics there, something we might like to see in a 5.3-pound machine, but given the computational help that this will throw out some games, something like World of Warcraft is playable on auto detect settings at native 1366 by 768 resolution. And that's what our display panel is. There is a 1600 by 900 option, glossy in either case. And I have to say that on our 1366 by 768 panel, it's not the best screen I've ever seen. It's a little bit dull. It doesn't get really bright. The colors don't pop on it. Viewing angles are not super wide. Now, Lenovo puts out some really nice displays in some of their products. Sadly, this isn't one of them. Our machine sells for $699, so you're looking at a $700 machine here. It's not super cheap, in other words. That gets you that Core i5 dual-core, 2.6 gigahertz. You get 8 gigs of RAM from Lenovo's website for that. Ours ship with 6, which is available in some retail stores for about the same price, but generally expect to get 8 gigs, and it has a terabyte hard drive. This does not have a caching SSD to speed things up at all. So, and that's a 5400 RPM hard drive. Now, that's okay. 1 terabyte hard drives tend to be 5400 RPM, but my God, this is one of the slower hard drives I've used in years. It's a SATA 3 gig per second hard drive, not 6, and it slows down the machine. It boots relatively slowly by Windows 8 standards. It took us about 20 seconds to get booted in. And the first time that we go to the desktop, now it'll be quicker because we've already done it, but the first time we go to the desktop here, I'll see it do things like redraw icons, which is because the hard drive is actually pretty slow. That's a shame because it holds down an otherwise pretty sprightly machine that has very good specs. As I mentioned, it weighs 5.3 pounds for a 14-inch machine. That's not terribly light, and it's 1.15 inches thick. The odd thing about this is it looks a little old-fashioned. If you see the display lid area over here, now it's part black and it's part silver, but the black part's thick enough you'd think that that would be just the display itself. When you close it and you open it up, you're kind of surprised to see part of that silver sandwich here, which is visually appealing. It's Lenovo's book look. They start with the U series, but see how much of the thickness is in the lid there? That's interesting. Now, touchscreens can add a little thickness, but that's an awful lot right there. Makes it look a little bit old-fashioned, loses the ooh and ah. Hinge very stiff, cannot open with one hand. Takes 2 hands to open that guy. You can see we have our power and charging LEDs on the front over here, and all plastic casing. Not bad looking with the two-tone look that they've got going. Something that we do like is the optical drive is built in. How nice is that? DVD recordable drive. There is no Blu-ray option on this machine. If you go for a top-of-the-line configuration with a dual-core 2.9 gigahertz Core i7 CPU, you're still going to get that DVD recordable, no Blu-ray, and that's going to run you around $880 to $900, depending on what kind of sales Lenovo has going on. On this side, 2 USB 2.0 ports, a little old-fashioned there. Combo mic headphone jack, Kensington lock slot. On the back, you can see what the hinges look like. This is the thickest part of the machine. And on this side, big old air vent right here. That's where our charger plugs in. Fairly compact charger is included. VGA port, nice to have for you business users and those who use older projectors. Ethernet drop-down port right here. And that's Realtek Ethernet. Full-size HDMI port, and here is your USB 3.0 port. Yay. And this is the SD card slot right here. If we look at the bottom of the machine, we see our air vents over here. Despite the full power CPU, by the way, this guy tends to run fairly cool and fairly quiet. Now, a thicker machine gives more room for components internally, so it tends to run thinner, and plastic doesn't get as hot as metal. But overall, pretty impressed with the cooling. It's very effective on this guy. But you notice there's no removable battery here. The 4-cell battery is sealed inside, and that means no easy access to ports. Now, there are several Phillips head screws on here. I wouldn't be surprised if you can get inside of here to access the 2 RAM slots and the standard SATA hard drive bay inside, but Lenovo isn't intending for you to open this guy up. And our lid view, well, it looks like a notebook. There it is. Something we do like, usually you gotta get closer to $1,000 to see this, but we have a backlit keyboard over here, and you can turn it on manually if you need to by hitting the FN key plus the space bar. You can see our backlighting is on now. You see it glowing out from around the keys, white LED backlighting, pretty effective. And here we have Lenovo's AccuType keyboard over here. It's not a bad keyboard. I know some folks have complained a little bit about it, but yeah, it does have more flex than I'm used to feeling on a Lenovo product, since they make some of the best keyboards in the world. That's not so great. Still, compared to other brands, I'm not going to complain. The large smile-shaped keys, the whole typing experience is nice and is tactile. It's just not up there with the best IdeaPad and ThinkPads. We have our multimedia row up here. No need to hit the FN key to use these functions. And we got our power button over here, lit up also when the backlighting is on. Looks pretty cool. Trackpad right here, not super duper large given the size of the machine. I like that it has a defined chrome ring over here so you can feel when you've gone off it, but I find that it doesn't track my finger really well always. Sometimes it kind of just like stops, and I have to tap somewhere else on the trackpad to get it back to responding. Hopefully they'll fix that with the driver update at some point. It supports multi-touch gestures, the swiping in to bring up the charms on the display, all that kind of stuff. And it has Lenovo one-key recovery for those of you who like that utility to help you get your PC back and working again once it's gotten a little confused. And yes, you can remove the giant sticker over here. We have a webcam up top above the display with microphones. It's a 1 megapixel webcam. Pretty decent, pretty bright actually. Liking that fairly well. And you can see our Windows Experience Index here, 7.2 for our Core i5. And that's the Core i5 3230M CPU here. Memory 7.2, that's a pretty good score for memory. Desktop graphics 4.7. Again, this is Intel HD 4000 integrated graphics. That score could be a little bit higher. That usually tends to fluctuate on these machines with driver updates and that kind of thing. 3D gaming graphics is 5.9, and the disk got 5.9, which I find a little wildly optimistic. But, you know, Windows Experience Index is really just a ballpark kind of thing. It's not something that I would really go by. In terms of synthetic benchmarks on PC Mark 7, it scored 2786, which is about what we would expect for a machine that has a pretty good CPU, but a traditional spinning hard drive. 3D Mark 11 was 649. Not a huge number there, but again, this is integrated graphics, so you're not talking about a gaming machine here. Like I said, you can play World of Warcraft on it. You can play older games because the CPU is going to handle a lot of that load. But things like first-person shooters, not so much unless they're pretty forgiving. Something like Left 4 Dead 2 is always real friendly for something that has integrated graphics. I would not expect to play something like Bioshock Infinite on this at all, though. Machine has single-band Intel Wi-Fi 2230, and this is something we keep yelling at Lenovo about. Really, everything should have dual-band Wi-Fi at this point, but their IdeaPad line generally does not. It has Intel Bluetooth 4.0. It does not have NFC. Synaptics makes the touchscreen controller here, and it works very well. It's nice and it's responsive. Definitely nice there. And once the hard drive is loaded, everything after you boot up, then your live tile apps perform pretty well. Before then, they're going to seem a little bit sluggish. But, for example, bring up the weather. Now that's nice and quick because we've done that before because the machine is booted up. And say we want to go to whatever's trending on Bing. It's going to take a little bit longer. It's going to think about that. It's also having to download stuff over the network. Now we'll look at what's trending here. Though I picked on the display, it's perfectly adequate here, given the resolution isn't super duper high, but it's okay. And how about videos? Let's see how a video looks on this guy. And then we're going to test 1080p video playback. And you can hear the speakers, which are surprisingly good.
1001. My name is Robert Neville. I'm a survivor living in New York City. I am broadcasting on all AM.
So pretty good speakers there. Not a bad screen. You really have to angle it just right so you can see without getting some black inversion. Of course, there's glare to deal with as well. So again, this is not a high-end display here, but audio quality pretty nice, and enough horsepower here that it could even handle 4K video playback if you want to do that. Obviously, you're not going to use that internal panel for that because it's much lower resolution, but you can do it. Battery life on this guy is just okay. Touchscreen Windows 8 machines tend to not have as good battery life as their non-touch counterparts did in the land of Windows 7, but this guy runs for about 4.5 hours on a charge. That's with mixed productivity and multimedia use, Wi-Fi on, using the web browser, email, streaming, say 45 minutes of video in between your so-called work sessions right there. And yeah, so not super duper long battery life, but then again, it has a full core CPU, not an ultra low voltage, low power CPU, so we're okay with that. The fact that the battery is sealed inside for a machine this thick, I'm kind of surprised. I'm a little bit disappointed. If I'm going to carry around 5.3 pounds and something that's well over an inch thick, I really would like to see a removable battery on it. So all in all, it's not a bad machine. It's just kind of one of those in-between machines. It's not all that memorable. It doesn't have any real special features. And Lenovo makes a lot of really cool machines, but right now I would say that what ASUS has with their VivoBook 15-inch is really going to fight with this guy for thinner, better-looking kind of machine around the same price, maybe $50 or $70 more. And even Toshiba's 845T, that's a fairly thin and light machine too. That's priced around the same, so less to carry around, which is pretty commendable. So that's the Lenovo IdeaPad Z400 Touch. It's available now. Not the worst notebook we've seen, but not the best notebook we've seen. There's a lot of competition in this space, and this one, well, it just strikes me as kind of average. I'm Lisa from Mobile Tech Review. Visit our website for the full review, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel.